Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. Today we have Ayo Johnson, who is a high-performance weightlifting athlete with over 35 years of experience at an elite level. He's known for his exceptional discipline and lived understanding of resilience. He draws on his athletic journey and life experience, and he now supports and coaches international organizations and leaders in building resilience, focus, and sustained performance in times of uncertainty. I met Ayo as part of our joint Speaker X journey, and I was blown away with his presence, his understanding of resilience, and his ability to speak on stage. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And if you get a chance, I really encourage you to go and watch Ayo's Speaker X talk. It's fantastic. And I welcome Ayo to the stage for today's talk on resilience in solving friction community. Thank you very much, Ayo.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Stuart. Really appreciate it. Lovely to meet you, Lewis. And is it Wolfram?
Yes.
You pronounce it Wolfram or Wolfram?
It doesn't really matter. People have also sometimes abbreviated it to Wolf, but Wolfram in German or Wolfram in English are both perfectly fine.
Fantastic. Well, lovely to meet you all. It's my pleasure to be here to talk about this subject. So, Stuart, how do you want to kick it off?
I open the floor to you to talk about resilience for your part of it, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask all of you if you could just give me your definitions. I'll say Wolfram and Lewis specifically. What do you think resilience is? Just off the top of your head. Then there's no right or wrong answers. Just tell me what you think it is.
Yeah, you pick one, or should I just go ahead?
Yeah, either one of you.
Yeah, it's the ability to bounce back. Is what I would have thought.
Yeah. Okay, and Wolfram?
Yeah, I would echo that. I would say it's the ability to adapt when things change and when expectations aren't fulfilled. Is the ability to effectively reconfigure how you deal with your life and your surroundings when things change.
Both are absolutely perfect and very much in line with the way I experience resilience. It is the ability to adapt, to recover, and then to bounce back to a state of well-being. Because all of us want well-being in our lives, and what is it that creates instability, insecurity, a feeling of not being safe? It's a lack of well-being here, because what tends to happen is we react to life. In fact, let me go to the beginning. Let me frame this from the beginning. Every single thing that we're doing in life is about training, whether we're aware or unaware. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit of background. I at school was very bad at sports. Okay, so I got teased a lot, and I had to find something that would make me feel as if I was worth something. So I found lifting weights. I couldn't run fast, so I got ridiculed. So I everything that I talk about is going to be based on lifting weights, because that is the general, universally accepted way that people see building a strength. So I use gym analogies. Now, if any of you walked into the gym today and you tried to deadlift 100 kilos, your bodies would probably disagree with you, wouldn't it? Why? Because it's not because you're not capable. It's because you haven't laid the foundations and built the capacity to be able to do this. Now, training resilience is exactly the same. We need to change the conditioning that we've had and build a new foundation to become more resilient. So we've already said that resilience is the ability to adapt, to recover, and then to bounce back. Now, the adaptation comes from the reactivity. Okay. The first thing that I would say is reactivity is what weakens our resilience, because most people are not reacting, responding to life. They're reacting to it. And when people react to life, they weaken their resilience. Like, for instance, you wake up, some people will wake up and they'll check their phone, they'll check their sales figures or something that is important to them, let's say sales figures or bank balance. And whatever they see will dictate how they feel. If it's good, they feel confident. If it's bad, they feel pressure, doubt, stress. Now, we've been conditioned to react to life. And this is what I discovered in my life, is that I was constantly reacting to what was going on the outside, whether I was reacting to people who were making fun of me because I wasn't good at sports, reacting to bad grades, when really what we should be doing is pausing and then responding. So if we go back to the gym analogy, what we've unconsciously been doing with our lives is we've been training the reactivity muscle. So most people are very reactive to life when really they should be training the pause and respond muscle. And why pause and respond? When we pause, we ask different questions. We create a space to ask different questions. And that curiosity gives different answers. So choosing to pause creates a position of power. And each time you choose to pause and then respond, you build power. And this is how you train yourself to become someone who sees something happen, someone who creates some space by pausing, and then they respond. This is how the training goes, because each time you do it, you build power. It's just like in the gym. When you walk into the gym, it's not the weight that makes you stronger. It's your response to the weight that makes you stronger. Do you follow? So when life is no different, you see, because when pressure hits, challenges become your reps, and your response is what builds your a muscular resilience or a resilient mind. Now, again, to go back to the gym analogy, every single day in our lives, we are training something, whether we are aware of it or whether we are unaware of it. We're training something through our posture, our inner mental diet, our self-talk, our attention, our habits. It's all training. We're training our emotional baseline. Now, if I look back on my life and I look back and look at how when I got to a point where I wanted to change, create desired change, I found that there was a lot of resistance. Couldn't figure out why there was so much resistance, because when I was alive but asleep and not aware of what I was doing, how I had been training my reactivity muscle and weakening my resilience. How do I put this? When you get to the point where you want to change and you find that there's a lot of resistance, most people will feel powerless and they'll say, oh, this is just how I am. I need to read more books. I need to go on more courses. No, actually, this is your place of power, because the very fact that you are having a difficult time from changing from the old shows you just how powerful the effect of that training was when you were not aware of what you were doing. So rather than feel powerless, the evidence is there. Yes, it's not very good evidence because you don't want to be that way. But the best thing about this is that that is evidence of how conditioned you've become, which is evidence of how you can change and become more powerful in the direction that you want. Do you follow? So a lot of people do feel very powerless when coming to trying to create desired change. And I would rather switch it round and say that the fact that you are having a tough time changing old habits is evidence of how powerful you are. Now that you've raised the awareness, you're now aware of where it is you want to go and how you did it. Now there's certain tools that I will go through. So number one was the gym analogy, that we're training every single day. And the thing is, when you look at the gym analogy, every time you do a repetition of something, it's like you're rehearsing something. A thought, a reaction, a lack of attention. It's building something, and it's a rehearsal. And the brain does not always give you what you want. It gives you what you've rehearsed. So now what I do on a day-to-day basis is I ask myself, what am I rehearsing by doing what I'm doing? I ask myself, what am I thinking about? It's all rehearsal. So to go back to the gym analogy, I'm going to keep referring to it. So what are the pillars of resilience training? Number one is the fact that it's all training. Number two is fortresses. Number three will be reactivity, which we've just touched on. Number four will be attention. And number five will be mental diet. Okay, so I kind of went about this in a very roundabout way. I do hope you will forgive me. But
No.
right, so so let us talk about the first part, which is fortresses. Now, a fortress is designed to keep people out, right? It's a structure that's designed to keep people out. Why do I use the term fortress? Because by the mid 1990s, I realized I had built a fortress of muscle around an insecure person, right? And there are different kinds of fortresses that people build. It could be financial fortresses, it could be academic fortresses, lots of what's the word, qualifications. But I would say that the most common form of fortresses that we build are belief fortresses. What is a belief fortress? A belief fortress is a very rigid, controlled, fixed way of thinking where uncertainty is unacceptable. It's uncomfortable as well as unacceptable. So let me give you an example. If you look at the United States, on the left and on the right hand side, you have two different belief fortresses. Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah.
So the problem with building fortresses is they're designed to keep people out, but they also keep you trapped in. And when you're trapped in, it limits growth and adaptability. So the first thing I want to impress upon you is that examine whether you have a fortress, whether it is a belief fortress, because that rigidity creates resistance to change. So the second part is reactivity. As obviously I mentioned earlier, most people are not responding to life, they're reacting to it. And the third part is our attention. Now, attention is without a doubt probably the strongest foundation of training resilience. Why do I say that? Because in the mid 1990s, the average attention span was 15 seconds, right? Today, would anyone like to guess what the average attention span is?
I think it's around 8 getting shorter.
8.2 seconds, right? In 10 years' time, it's going to drop to 6 seconds, just below 6 seconds, about 5.8 seconds. And corporations spend billions on trying to capture and monetize our attention. And when our attention is fractured, it becomes shallow. And when our attention is shallow, we become very easy to steer. And this is where the reactivity that I mentioned just earlier comes in. As we're constantly reacting to things, that is what weakens our resilience. So if our attention spans are dropping or becoming, more difficult to focus, we generally are more difficult. We generally do find it more difficult to focus. It is very difficult to maintain resilience. Now, training the attention is the very foundation of being a resilient person, because when we then become focused on change, our minds have got to be very, very focused on what it is, what has happened, and what we want to happen. So when things happen in life, we don't immediately say, "Oh, that's happened. That's because this is my part of my history. I did this for decades." When you say, "This always happens to me. This is kind of part of my my life cycle or part of my story." So when you train your attention, something happens, and like I said, you choose to pause instead of react. You pause, and each time you pause, you strengthen your pause muscle, you weaken your reactivity muscle, and then you respond. And that's training your ability to respond muscle. It's your responsibility muscle. You start to become more responsible for how it is you're showing up in this world. This is the key. And when I said we pause, attention is what concentrates that pause, that space, that gap where we pause. Whereas if we don't have attention, something happens and we're just straight into reactivity. And then it's the next thing that's going to happen and the next thing. And all of a sudden we feel that life is happening to us. Whereas life is happening through us by how we choose to observe and pause and observe. Now, the next part is mental diet. When I was bodybuilding, I trained, let me see, 1 hour 3 times a week, right? And it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I was encouraged to eat 5 meals a day. So that's 35 meals a week compared to 3 hours of training. So where was the muscle built? It's not in the gym. The muscle was built through the diet. So if you want to train resilience, it's not, it's your mental diet is very important, because from the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep, we're speaking to ourselves about something. The question is, what are we saying to ourselves? What are you saying to yourself on a day-to-day basis? That is a real, it's a very important part of this training, because that voice that we speak to, that we hear and respond to or react to, is painting a picture of how our life is. So one thing I'll ask you all to do over the next 48 hours, or if you want to pick another 48 hours next week, over 48 hours, what I would encourage you all to do is to write down any negative thought that comes to your mind. This is not about judging a negative thought. It's not about trying to think positively, because thinking positively is not really the goal. What we want is conscious thinking. So over 48 hours, write down any negative thought that you have. And it doesn't have to be long sentences. It could just be a name or a place or a date. You will know what it is. And what I'd done this several times over the years. Maybe once or twice every few months. You don't have to do it that often. But what you will have in your hands is a manual as to how your mind is working. Okay, because what I discovered was I was having thoughts about things that happened 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And I was still reacting to these things. This was happening behind the scenes. And that was why I was feeling stuck, because I was still reacting to the past. So when you do this exercise, it puts power into your hands, because on pen and paper, you can see, you get a snapshot, a Polaroid snapshot as to what mental diet you're feeding on. I was feeding on a diet of toxic mental junk food, because I was thinking back to situations from the past about, this happened. I wish I had said this. I wish I had done this. If I see this person again, I will do this. I will say this. And I was starting to have mental arguments with myself. Well, with people that I probably didn't even see anymore. And this is the key, is when you become more fully aware of how the mind is working, it gives you power. It gives you a lot of power, because now you can then start to direct your inner conversation. It's a negative thought will come into your mind, and rather than react to it, you pause and observe the negative thought. Because negative thoughts can actually be a warning sign. It could be a light on your dashboard, a little orange light on your dashboard. You don't ignore them. You don't fight a negative thought. Otherwise, you create a war within yourself. That's going to weaken your resilience. But you observe the negative thought, and you ask your question is, how long have I been having this negative thought? How long has this been going on? Is this a negative thought from maybe my relationship in the 1990s, because that was happening? Is this negative thought from a job I had many years ago where I got fired? And once you identify it, then you can actually start saying, okay, now I'm not going to react to this thought anymore. And I'm going to choose to pause, respond, and redirect. And each time you do this, this is your training. Going back to the gym analogy, each time you do this, you're building reps, you're building power away from what you don't prefer towards what you do prefer. So this is really, because I've often said, when I coach people, I've often said, some people don't need enemies. They have their own thoughts creating disturbance. And it can cause a lot of issues for a lot of people. It's not what happens, it's the meaning that you give it. So from the moment we wake up, we are having conversations about what's happening in our lives, what we remember, once we get control of this part, because this part is literally the diet that we're feeding on. That's the diet that you're feeding the muscle of resilience, because resilience is a muscle and we have to train it. But if you're like me, I'd spent decades on training in a different way, training in the reactive way. And then when I became aware and I wanted to change, I found I was literally fighting within myself. And now well, a few years ago, I realized that this is actually evidence of how powerful I am. And this is how powerful all of you are. If you have a habit or a habitual way of thinking and feeling and being that you want to change. The evidence is the fact that it is difficult, but now that you're aware of the fact that you do have this power, now we can redirect. And it happens on a thought by thought basis. We're not trying to think positively in the mental diet. We're trying to have conscious thinking so that your thoughts don't use you. Because you see, resilient people, they still experience pain, anger, sadness, doubt, insecurity, grief, loss, sorrow, anger. They still experience all of these things, yet they can still function. How? Because they don't engage in long, extended emotional reactions to whatever it was that life once threw at them. Yeah, they may react a little bit because they're human, but then you know what? They adapt. They adapt. They respond. They adapt. They recover through a conscious mental diet, and then they bounce back. And that's what resilience is. So again, like just to recap, because I think the half an hour is almost up. The first thing is everything we're doing is based on training, whether aware or unaware. We're always training our emotional baseline through our posture, our thoughts, our attention or lack thereof. It's our inner conversation. It's everything we're doing is training. So are you doing something that you want to strengthen, or are you doing something that you want to weaken? I want to strengthen my attention always, because I know that, when I sit down to read a book, I can read 2 pages and I think I have to go back and read it again. Does anyone suffer from this? Yeah. You see, so that's the first part in the gym analogy. It's always on. We're always on. Okay, and we just have to be very conscious of what it is we're strengthening, what it is we choose to strengthen, and what it is we want to weaken. We want to weaken the reactivity. So then the next part, as I said, was fortresses. Fortress is a towering structure that's designed to keep people out. And beliefs are one of the main types of fortresses. I had very strong belief fortresses until I changed, and then I began to adapt and I began to grow because I became conscious of the fact that I was trapped in a fortress. The next part I mentioned was the reactivity. Most people, there's the one thing that's quietly controlling people's performance. It's not their skill set, it's their reactivity, because we've been conditioned to react instead of pause and respond. And you can see this in the media. You can see this in outrage news and headlines that are designed to promote a reaction, and algorithms. Once you click on something or you spend long, it starts to feed you more to just so that you can react. And the thing I want to tell you about reactivity is when you react to results, current results, what you're essentially doing is you're reacting to the past. Why? Because current results in life, in your life or in my life, are the results of past thinking, past habits, past decisions. So if we react emotionally to a current result, we're letting past thinking control our current behavior. Resilient people choose to see current results as a report card from the past. It's feedback. It's feedback. All you do is you look at it, you think, okay, I've got some information, and then you move on. It's like driving a car with a rear view. We use the rear view mirror as a point of reference. We don't drive down the motorway staring at the rear with our eyes on the rear view mirror. So current results are just data and feedback, not to be reacted to, because resilient people will they they see current results as feedback. It's not a prison sentence, right? And then they just take the data from it and then they move on. So that's reactivity. Then we go to attention. I'm just recapping everything. The attention is the very foundation, because our attention is commodity that's being traded on the open market. Yeah, I was born in the time when it was just radio, TV, magazines. Now the phone is literally, I'm not bashing, I'm not, no shame or condemnation about using phones, because I use mine quite a lot. But your attention is the most powerful creative force that you have. And that's why people will pay billions on trying to capture and monetize your attention. It's valuable. And if your attention is valuable to them, how much more should your attention be valuable? How much value then should you place on your attention? You see what I mean? So when it comes to desired change, we don't focus our attention on what was. We have to focus our attention on raising our awareness, and think of attention like a flashlight. Like you're looking in a dark room to look for instructions on a wall, okay? And the room is filling up with water, and you're trying to find instructions to stop the room filling up with water. But the flashlight keeps moving. There's going to be a problem, isn't there? So if you can hold your attention on the instructions, find the instruction manual, stop it. This is how I look at attention. It's just like a flashlight, and it is the most powerful force that you have available to you. And then lastly, the mental diet is, like I said, is one of the most important parts of this, because here it's just you. And are you always on your own side? That's the question I ask myself. I was not always on my own side. So your mental diet is the foundation, actually, as well as the attention.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ayo. Thank you. That was really great. I could listen to you all day.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a Q&A, so I didn't. Well, anyway, that's fine. I'm quite happy with what I was able to deliver.
That was great. Yeah, the Q&A comes next.
Yeah.
No worries. So thank you so much for that. That was amazing. I really enjoyed that. The one question I've got for you before we move on to other people is that resilience is a very specific skill, and it's one of 16 that I've chosen within the Congregator method. Why did you choose resilience to be the topic that you wanted to speak on?
That's a
Not
very
today,
good
but
question.
as your sole focus as a public speaker. That's you've gone down
Right.
that. Why have you chosen it?
It's a very good question, because I was signed by a speaking agent. I think it was last year, and I told them that I wanted to go and talk about well-being in the workplace, and be a well-being coach. And they looked at me and they said, "You embody not well-being, you embody resilience," because they listened to the story of when I was growing up, and the challenges that I had with traditional sports, and what I chose to do as a result. And that, lifting weights, and it's now what, 39 years of weight training. I train more now than I did in my 20s. So they said that chart is actually the embodiment of resilience, because it's now nothing to do with growing muscle or standing up on stage and winning bodybuilding trophies. It's about training this, because in the mid 1990s I realized I hadn't trained this. So I went on a journey to train this while still doing the reps in the gym. So resilience is part and parcel of who I am. It just took somebody else to identify that as a subject for me to focus on.
Fantastic. I love that answer. I was the same. It was Alex from Speaker X who read my story and all the things that I was talking about in my background, and he picked out friction as the thread that ran through my entire life, and that's why we are now sitting in the solving friction community rather than the solving stakeholder engagement problem community.
Solving stakeholder engagement. Interesting.
Yeah,
That would have been boring.
it would have.
Yeah, I had a whole other talk on well-being and mental health, and they said no, this is your subject. And the more I looked into resilience, the more it just stacked up one on top of the other. It just grew into something.
It does. It's really powerful. So thank you
Yeah,
very much for giving us, the community, the chance to listen to you today. Brilliant.
it's a pleasure.
I'd like to open the floor to questions. So, Wolfram, Lewis, and JR, have you got any questions that you would like to ask Ayo?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here from the U.S. side, East Coast. My question towards you is, now that you've improved yourself mentally, how do you associate when you're not in your business, so to speak?
How do I associate with?
Okay, a lot of us, I am an unemployed individual, and there's only so much solitude my personality can take. And so I was wondering, I guess you're like Stuart, you learn to talk in public speaking, but you also need to exchange with people. And I was wondering if you had or would be willing to share what public places you've gone to talk and share.
Oh, I see. Okay, there's two parts to your question, because you mentioned that you're unemployed, and does that feel isolating?
Well, I live in an isolated area. I live outside Washington, D.C. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I am military. That's a different tag. But it's just the fact that I don't fit in my surroundings. So to talk beyond networks of doing trash, mommy stuff, whatever, I don't have that fulfillment. So I go searching elsewhere. Like I'm traveling to other places within the state to find
Right. Right. So I have lived alone for 20 years, and I had a concierge service. So for 22 years now, I've lived and worked alone at home. And it depends on the personality type. I find that I gain a lot of strength from solitude. So, but when I'm in public, I come alive. Okay, so in a social setting, I come alive. So going to speak, it depends on. I mean, if it's a paid gig, then
No, I was
fantastic.
wondering socializing, please.
On socializing. Okay. Well, I belong to a network. It's called the Brothers Network, and there's a group of entrepreneurs, and they hold different events. And sometimes they ask me to come in and speak. Or it's just a networking. There is something called Meetup, which my wife has lit. She's very, very big on Meetup. If you look it up,
Yes, I know.
meetup.com.
I've been told now Meetup has changed. It used to
Yeah,
be a freebie, and now you got to pay. And when I
yeah,
get the plastic, the plastic card, the credit card, I'm sure I'll be using it a little bit more
yeah.
online.
That's a great place to go and meet and exchange ideas. Whether you have something to pitch or not is not the point. The point is to go and meet people. I get invited to things on occasion, not as much as before. And when I go, I love to meet and I love to listen. When I'm in public, I tend to listen more than I speak, unless I'm, asked to share something. People say,
Mhm.
"What do you do?" Okay, then I'm going to speak to them. So yeah, the two parts of what you said, I mean, yeah, I like being alone because I gain a lot of strength from it, but my day is supermarket, or sorry, gym, 6:30 or 7 a.m., supermarket, come home, or then go for a walk in the park in the evening. Or if my wife is in the country, when she's here, then obviously I've got someone to, or if I go to Paris to spend time with her, I've got somebody to speak to. But no, I'm not somebody who generally goes out to specifically socialize. Um,
Well, once you're married, you do have some regulations. Yes, I do understand.
she lives in a different country.
But she occasionally comes in to surprise
Oh
you.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. We do spend time together. We do. But so when she's not here, I tend to just become the hermit, which can restrict certain things. But I tend to be very creative, so I would find a way to gain strength from it. Yeah, because it's again it's perception about being number one unemployed. You can grow from that. You
Right,
can
and I'm
grow.
working on that. I just was
Yeah.
curious on your venues, if you have any specific. This I have a second question, and it's more looking at your physical attributes, um, and looking at mine, and saying, "You go to the gym how many times a week?" Did you say?
As many days as I can get away with. As many days. I think it's been 7 days so far. 7 days. No, I missed Monday. I didn't go on Monday. But since last week, it's been Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, missed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today's Friday, so I went this morning. So, and it's not, yeah, it's a social place. You say, you meet people there, but I'm very focused as to what it is I want to achieve. And 1 hour, that's it. I'm out.
Because I have a personal trainer. I started that. That was my New Year's resolution, and I'm like, I'll be talking to her today to
Hmm.
discuss how to improve. But then, how to uncomplicate my life's different, of course, than yours. It's
Hmm.
not as free. But I needed to ask that because it gives you listening to you gave me some encouragement. So I don't react right off the bat, but I do thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you very much for your questions. And if you ever want to reach out or anything, just speak to Stuart, and I can share anything that can help.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gio. Any other questions from the community?
Well, I guess just a comment from my side. I mean, I saw you with your Speaker X contribution on the public speaking community,
Hmm.
and I must say, your presence on stage and also your vocal presence is really fascinating.
Powerful.
You have a powerful and very wonderful voice, and you can really pull me into what you're describing. So thank you for sharing your thoughts today. I would also say that there are a couple of things where I strongly resonate with what you say in terms of, you know, the attention economy and how we're being effectively manipulated to consume rather than to try and change things.
Mm. Yeah.
And I guess one question that I have after that sort of feedback is, how would you think, in addition to speaking to people about resilience and making them more aware of how they are consuming and just reacting to their environment, what would be a future state where you say we have as a society potentially progressed? I mean, you mentioned the US, for example, with a very divisive political system, but I think also in the UK or here in Germany, we're seeing the same tendency. So what would be your sort of perceived future state of where you would like things to progress to?
I would like to demonetize some of the information, where the information comes from. And I know that sounds silly, but there is a lot of profit in outrage.
Mhm.
There's a lot of profit from people being angry. And without overgeneralizing, I'll say that people are more reactive and more angry now than ever before. You could say that that's because we've got many different news channels, many different ways, places we can get information. We've got phones, we've got YouTube, we've got all sorts of things. So there's many different things, many different places. But I would rather that the owners of the news channels don't monetize outrage with headlines, because it feeds into a system that generally makes people more afraid, and fear is debilitating. And I'm not saying people are afraid to leave their homes, but people are more suspicious of what's happening because of the general trend. So I would like to see a place where there's a place for you to go and get some information if you want, but it's not bombarded, because certain sections will have one set of news, another section will have a completely opposite. And it depends on who is paying or who is getting more revenue. And I would like to see a more responsible media landscape, I would say.
Maybe if you allow one follow-up question, because I've been sort of going down that rabbit hole also for quite a long time. And the suspicion that has formed in me is that I'm thinking we're missing, in the way we communicate today, we're missing a piece of grammar in terms of how we can respectfully signal that something isn't okay. Because yes, we have media companies that are big companies, listed or unlisted, doesn't really matter. And of course, they're trying to create influence and generate income. That's just the way the economy works. But I think on a personal level, if we're in a room, then as you said, we've been trained with our reactive muscle to react to pieces of information that are never the complete landscape. They're just figments of, whether it's skin color or age or employment status or whatever else. Religion, gender, pick any label. We use that very, very quickly to then reduce the other person into that category. And that creates this persistent inside versus outside. You were talking about fortresses we build around ourselves and our beliefs and our sort of ecosystems. And I was just thinking, if you take something as simple as two cards when we communicate, because oftentimes I also sense that silence by the majority is often portrayed as consent, which rarely is the case, because silence can also be a completely rational decision of risk management, because if you have hierarchy in an organization or society and a powerful person speaks up, then if you then try to counter argue, that can be a very risky proposition, because you are a minority voice speaking up in a position of not having power. So you're suddenly the oddball.
Yeah.
And then the powerful person, it has a very easy time to isolate you and effectively control how the wider group reacts. But if you give everyone the ability to say, well, actually, what just happened wasn't cool, I'm not cool with that, and I'm not judging the person who did something, but I'm able in a nonverbal fashion to give a signal to say, what I just saw made me uncomfortable or crossed the line for me. And then the second signal would be to say, well, we're not judging you as a person, number one, but we're also not canceling you as a person, because as you said, whatever we do is a rehearsal. So the second element, which is as important, would be a green card to say, well, actually, you're allowed to try again.
Yeah, give them permission to be able to try again. And yeah, I fully agree.
There's a book that I have been listening to, but it's so good that I actually got the physical copy. It's called Crucial Conversations.
Yeah.
And that actually covers that specific topic in depth. When you are trying to raise a concern with somebody who's in a position of authority over you in a group setting, that might help you very much in that situation.
If I was in that situation, thank you for that, Stuart. If I was in that situation and there was somebody in authority, and there was something that I had to say, let's say, I guess it depends on what you stand to lose, because if it's in a professional environment, you could be, your job may be at risk. But I would probably wait until the meeting is over and go and speak to them one-on-one. Or if that opportunity did not arise, I would ask if I would have permission to speak, and I'll say, could I share something in addition to what you're saying, not in contradiction, but in addition to what you're saying, or as a reflection of your thoughts, I would like to present my thoughts on this. And it wouldn't be a clash, like, I don't agree with that, that's out of order, or it's not a non-verbal it's a non-verbal signal, like you could say like this, that's obviously not going to be acceptable. But I would ask permission to share something. I would say, in reflection of your thoughts, I want to share this. So it's not in opposition, it's, it all just flows, and they can take it how they want, but your voice has been heard.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I really like the. So first, I should apologize. My monitors keep going out, and so the camera goes off, but I'm still here. If that happens, all right. Yeah, I really like the gym analogy. I got that 100K deadlift covered, so we're
excellent.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about one thing, though, the belief fortresses. It seems to me that there are good parts of belief fortresses too. They do protect us to make sure that we don't have our values corrupted. So I wonder if you could just address sort of maybe a little more holistically what your take on the belief fortresses.
Yeah, with fortresses, I mean, I mentioned the different types of fortresses that we build. There's physical fortresses, and it can be due to protect ourselves. Okay, I didn't realize that the muscular fortress that I had built, this fortress of muscle, was as a form of protection. There are other physical fortresses, such as cosmetic surgery fortresses. You say people who have done a lot to themselves, they're protecting what's underneath. I know somebody who built a financial fortress. He's worth tens of millions and he's always sworn never to get married. And he is in his probably mid 60s now. And he sees women and children as a financial risk, and he will leave all his money to charity or his nieces. That's a financial fortress. But the belief fortresses is anything that you are believing to protect yourself to the exclusion of any other idea. Now, let me when you say about your values, okay, if I may be slightly controversial on this one, I would say that there's a belief fortress from when I was at school that children's school books, you have a boy, Bill, or a girl, Jane, and they are easily identifiable as either one. Now, I don't think that's a belief fortress. I believe that that's normal. Okay. But now we see that there are children's school books where there is no identification. Okay. So I think maybe that's what you're touching on, whether this is going to come in and threaten your values. Is that what you mean?
No, not necessarily. For instance, I'm a big believer in the value of immigrants. I know there are a lot of people who aren't, but I hold on to this belief because it says something to me about the kind of person I am. Like there's some of these beliefs that we hold on to that we are proud of that we have these beliefs because so it seems to me the belief fortress I protected myself against all the anti negative messaging that comes
I got
with
it.
this fortress.
I got it. I got it. I got it. Yeah. What I would say is that when it comes to your belief, it's something that if it's not aligned with your values, then that is something that is designed to, you keep it in to keep people out. That's your fortress that keeps the external, unwanted, misaligned ideas out, because then you are protected. And the way I mentioned it, the way I said it earlier, you would assume that you need to get out of the fortress and just accept any and everything, but it has to be aligned with your values.
Okay.
If it's not, then we need those other things to be kept out, because then we allow those in, it creates conflict in a war, so which we don't want. We want to always be in a place of neutrality. I always speak to people about, it's not about positive thinking. It's not about, always being up here all the time. It's about equilibrium. It's about balance. This is neutrality. It's a neutral place. So something happens and it's negative. Something happens in your life, it's negative. You can pause and observe it. And yeah, maybe there's a reaction, but then you can just pause, observe, and then redirect. Something good happens, you can enjoy it, but then return to neutrality. Because always being positive all the time, I tried it. It didn't really do that much for me. Yeah. So it's about alignment, Lewis. That's it. If it's misaligned, I have no interest in it.
Got it. Good. Thanks.
When those belief fortresses clash, that's when you have real conflicts and things like war and stuff like that as well. It's a very deep topic.
Yeah, it is. It is a very deep one.
It's very polarized.
It is the most common type of fortress that we build. I mean, it's it's. I mean, I hear other people's ideas, but I don't. If I'm misaligned, I don't bring it in. That's why my business is called Fortress Mindset.
Nice.
Because Fortress Mindset for me is about, I want to protect my attention. I want to protect my mental diet. Okay, so some people will look at it as you're saying fortresses are bad because they keep people out, but they keep you trapped in. But no, in this context, fortress mindset is to protect your attention,
Yep.
protect your what you allow into your mental diet, which is what is going to keep going round and round and round and become the food that may drain your resilience or it may build your resilience.
So you're like Simon Sinek. You're a philosopher now.
I would hope to be one day
Like Simon Sinek.
like that wonderful gentleman. But
Well,
that's
I know
very
we-
kind of you, JR.
Sorry, I know we're at time, and I don't want to take up any more of your valuable time, Ayo. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming and talking with us today. This has been amazing. I really enjoyed listening to it, and it's been a
I've enjoyed
fantastic conversation as well. So
Yeah,
thank
I've
you. I
really
would love
enjoyed it. Thank you all. JR, Lewis, Wolfram, thank you very much. And if you want to reach out, I'll send some details. If you want to follow me on YouTube, follow my YouTube channel. That'll be great.
you
Well,
definitely
if
should.
you're on LinkedIn, I'll be following you anyways. Bye.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day.